Rolling Stone magazine apologized today for an article that generated worldwide headlines and cast a harsh spotlight on the University of Virginia. A student claimed she was being raped by a gang of students at a fraternity party and was ignored by campus officials. Nancy Cordes tells us Rolling Stone is now backpedaling on the story.
There used to be a time when real journalists roamed the broadcast land and were taught a simple edict: check your facts, then check them again, then check them again. Our fast food media landscape has changed all that for the worse, and now comes time for the latest group to break that rule to face the legal music. Let's welcome back to MidPoint. From the law firm of O'Brien & Ryan in Philadelphia, our legal expert, Heather Hansen, joins us once again. Heather, thanks for being here. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Ed.
Here we go now with Rolling Stone. They've had one apology, a second apology, all this over the University of Virginia fraternity party rape sexual assault story that they printed not long ago. And it would seem as if that basically they didn't check their facts. They didn't bother to go ahead and check all the people involved, and now they're caught. Heather, I got news for you. This would be something that when I was involved in journalism from the first beginning, I was told that this was a lawsuit that there was no way you could ever escape.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens, because the fraternity itself has definitely been libeled. That is, there's a negative connotation to what has been said about them. Whether or not the fraternity will file suit is a different question, because, as you know, the best defense to a libel case is truth. So Rolling Stone would then be in a position to have to do what they should have done from the start, and that is to prove their story true. Whether or not the fraternity wants to put themselves in that position is what is yet to be seen. But if they do and they decide to pursue a case, I think they have one of the strongest cases of libel we've seen in a long time.
Aren't we looking, though, at a number of cases here? Because, quite frankly, if you were to go over a lot of the media, and not just the broadcast media, print media, internet media, so many other factions now in media, so many times there's mistruths, there's half-truths, there's lies. What is it that makes this one any more egregious than all the rest?
Well, Ed, we see that so much more often now, too, with social media and Twitter and everything being so fast and quick. What makes this different is it was reported as fact. It was not reported as opinion. It was not, there were no sort of stepping away from it and saying, well, this is what the allegations were. This was reported as fact. And in many instances, when you have questions like this about sexual assault, the unfortunate thing is people, whether it's lawyers or journalists, are protecting the victim instead of supporting the victim. And protecting her by not checking the sources turned out to put her in a much worse position. So reporting the facts and being just plain wrong sets you up for a libel case.
As an attorney, what does this then say to you with regard to sexual assault cases and cases that we know that victims will not report for decades simply because of the social stigma that's attached to it? This is something that it would seem would keep them from ever wanting to say anything ever again.
Well, and that's why we have to support the women who are coming forward. And by support, that means to encourage them to come forward, encourage them to do it quickly so that the evidence is saved and so that witnesses' recollections are fresh. Because the longer that you wait, the more questions there are. You know, I know we're going to talk about the Cosby case, but in that case, after so many years, recollections change and they can be affected by things that you hear and by things that you are told. So women who have been hurt need to understand that there is not that stigma there any longer, and they have to be supported to come forward and be strong in the allegations that they're going to make.
All right, now let's go ahead and turn to the Cosby case here. There's a woman in Los Angeles suing Bill Cosby for sexual battery, and apparently, according to Cosby's lawyer, she attempted to sell a story about Cosby to a tabloid a decade ago, then tried to extort money in exchange for her silence. Her name is Judy Huth, and apparently, according to the lawyer, Cosby's lawyer, she tried to extort $500,000, I should say $250,000 from Cosby. And then, of course, the attorney basically came back and said, claims are false, have at it. This is just incendiary now to think. And not only that, but this woman, and it should be pointed out, she also was involved in another case years ago with Marv Albert, the sportscaster in the city of New York, who was charged with biting women in sexual moments. This gets more unbelievable every time we look.
From a legal perspective, Ed, this case is infuriating because under the law in California, we know this was many, many years ago. So the statute of limitation has passed unless she has repressed the memory, in which case you have from 3 years from the time that you got the memory back. But if you're going to make that claim, you have got to have a certificate from a psychologist saying that that is the case. She did not do that in the case against Cosby. That in and of itself should be enough to throw that case out of court. On top of that, until you have that certificate of merit, you are supposed to name the defendant as John Doe so that women can't just go around filing things against men when they may not be true. She instead named Cosby by name. There's so much wrong with her suit. And again, we go back to this issue where if this type of thing is allowed to stand, how does it impact the real victims who have real stories who then may be afraid to come forward? This case is infuriating from a procedural legal perspective.
And if we're going to be fair, we have to again point out that no charges have been filed against Bill Cosby at any time, so we will continue to watch this as well. Finally, in Cleveland, Samaria Rice, who was the mother of the 12-year-old Cleveland boy shot by the cops there, says she is looking for a conviction. The mother has already filed a wrongful death lawsuit over this case, but she wants the police to be accountable for what they did to her son. It would seem as if, at least to parents, many parents would say she is making a logical request.
Absolutely. It is unusual to see the wrongful death case come before the grand jury determination, and we don't have a grand jury determination in this case. But it's kind of understandable, given what grand juries have done in the last few months, that they want to go ahead and get out in front of this. The case itself, the complaint, is fascinating and very disturbing. You know, we know that the Department of Justice has already said that there's a pattern of problems in Cleveland with regard to the police force. But she is alleging not only were the police negligent, that they let the boy sit for 4 minutes before they called for help, but also that one of the officers was forced to resign from his old job at a different police department, that his personnel file was rife with problems, and that the new police office did not look into his past reviews. If that is true, that's going to be yet another big problem for this case.
You think that likely what will happen here in the end is they will settle out of court for a lot of money?
I think that it would be something that I would recommend if I were representing that police academy, that police force, rather.
This is going to be an interesting case to watch, as are all three of them. We will continue to do so as well. Heather Hansen joins us weekly here on the show to talk about all the legalese that's involved. Heather, thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again next week. Have a great week.
You too, Ed. Take care.
All right, take care. Time out, and we're back with the Money Master, a check on Wall Street, and the latest reason why one may not want to invest in the Uber transportation concept. And at 43 minutes after the hour, cops who deserve our attention. And finally, for all the right reasons. The holiday season is here, and it's about time to note those who do something right and serve and protect. That's coming up right here on MidPoint.